En hier zijn we dan in het centrum van Amsterdam bij de Dam en het monument van Amsterdam. En wat we gaan doen is natuurlijk informeren van mensen over de jaren 70 en wat zich allemaal in de jaren 70 heeft afgespeeld. Nou, als je om je heen kijkt, dan staan er voldoende mensen op dit plein die de leeftijd hebben die de jaren 70 hebben meegemaakt. En er zijn natuurlijk ook mensen die het niet hebben meegemaakt. Dus we gaan eens kijken wat het verschil is. Hoe de mensen die het nog niet meegemaakt hebben tegen de jaren 70 aankijken. En hoe de mensen die het wel meegemaakt hebben zich dan gaan herinneren. Dus we gaan dus mensen aanspreken. Dus kijken wat eruit komt. Wij maken een kanaal over de jaren 70.
Yes.
En,
lang geleden?
Ja, dat is best een tijdje terug. Ja. Nou, vraag ik me eerst af, heb jij de jaren 70 beleefd?
Nee.
Ja, dat dacht ik al.
Nee, mijn ouders wel heel intens, maar ik denk het niet.
Ja? Als ik jou nou vraag over de jaren 70.
Ja?
En ik vraag dat eigenlijk voor de nieuwe generatie van nu.
Ja.
Waar denk je dan aan?
Disco.
Ja.
Dan denk ik toch aan de muziek die uit die tijd komt.
Ja.
Maar je denkt natuurlijk aan de dingen die wij nog kunnen ontvangen van die tijd. Dus voor mij, het einde van de Vietnamoorlog, dat is allemaal vrij ver weg.
Ja.
Maar ik denk toch aan hippies, ik denk aan de muziek. Want dat zijn de dingen die ik heb meegekregen vanuit die tijd.
Ja, dat is absoluut. Denk je dat het noodzakelijk is dat de generatie van nu eens wat meer naar de jaren 70 zou gaan kijken? Hoe men toen leefde? Of zeg je van, dat is een hele andere tijd?
Ik denk het wel. Ik denk dat wat uniek is in de jaren 70 is dat er veel sociale en wereldwijde problemen waren. Ja. Denk aan ook de Vietnamoorlog, maar er waren ook meer, volgens mij was er ook een tekort aan benzine. Dus de prijs van benzine ging heel hoog.
Autoloze zondag.
Ja, en je ziet toch hoe de cultuur zich daarop reageert. Daar is veel uit te leren. En ik denk wat we soms een beetje missen is dat de fouten van nu zijn niet unieke fouten. Het is niet alsof we het voor het eerst meemaken met economische moeilijkheden, maar ook sociale moeilijkheden. Ja. En ik denk dat het best wel nuttig is om terug te kijken naar de geschiedenis en te kijken hoe mensen vroeger met die problemen zijn omgegaan en daarvan te leren.
Have you any thoughts about the 70s?
I mean, there's definitely the idea that they were full of hippies. I know that there was some big movements, especially just around the world with the end of the 60s and the 70s began. I know I've researched more of the 60s and the 70s, so I don't know a ton. I know my grandparent, my pappy, grew up in the 70s, and he talks about it a bit. I'm from the United States, so he joined a commune for a while out there, but he won't talk about it.
No,
he won't talk about it.
Silence.
There's some old values that we need to bring back, and there's some new values that we need to continue pushing. I think we've lost a lot of touch with our communities as we've gone to the digital age. We've lost touch with being around each other and not having our phones out all the time. You saw me, I was taking photos, I was excited. Yeah. I'm soloing this right now, so I'm meeting up with some friends later, but I'm alone right now in Amsterdam, and I'm it's kind of nice to just be in these places where there is a community. Because I know the States, at least, we really, really lost that.
Wenn ich sage 70er Jahre, woran denken Sie da? Was hat sich da so abgespielt in den 70er Jahren?
Ja, Flower Power würde ich sagen. Mhm. Und ich glaube Freiheit, viel Musik, viel Tanzen.
Ja, das würde ich auch sagen. Bunt, viel Spaß. Ja. Genau.
Ja. Freie Liebe.
Freie Liebe, ja, das war ja auch die Zeit.
Ja.
Sind die 70er Jahre nach Ihrer Meinung in Deutschland anders erlebt als zum Beispiel in Holland?
Das weiß ich gar nicht.
Nee, das kann ich auch nicht einschätzen.
Nee, ich glaube nicht. Ich glaube auch nicht. Ich glaube, dass die Leute vielleicht dichter zusammen waren noch als heutzutage teilweise.
Yeah. Okay, where are you from?
The United States.
The United States. If I tell you the 70s, what do you remember? If you are young enough to remember that?
Bell bottoms.
Bell bottoms, yeah, of course.
Striped bell bottoms. Tie-dye. Drugs.
And what about the miniskirts?
Yeah, miniskirts, sure. Beatles.
The Beatles, yeah. What is the difference between the people now and the people then?
I'd say in the 70s, people were a lot easier going. I think there was less hatred in the 70s, less bigotry in the 70s, compared to what's going on now.
What would be your message, thinking about that time, to the new generation now?
Peace. Peace. Look at your past. Look at what happened in the past, and don't repeat the same mistakes.
You're my man, I can tell you.
Well, I think about John Lennon, Beatles.
Good music,
yes, very good. Rock and roll, yes, as well. And I would say flower time.
Yeah.
The 70s flower time.
Best time of my life. I was born in 72. Yeah.
You're 70. Yeah. I see your shirt. That could be easily flower power.
Yeah.
If you try to imagine living in the 70s, what would that be? What would the society be different?
Well, in Finland. Well, I was born in '64, so
Hey.
I remember quite well '70s when I was a child. Well, our living standard was much lower than now.
Yeah.
No electric things like mobile phones and things like that.
Did you have
Yeah.
hippies in Finland?
Yeah, yes, we had. And I had hippie time when I was 14 or something like that, 14, 15. Yeah, actually it was a little bit gone already, but still we had hippie time. Yeah.
Would you go
Yeah.
back if someone gave you the opportunity to went back to the 70s?
Not really,
Not really, no?
no, it wasn't, yeah. 'Cause
What
that
do you
was-
like the most on this
yeah.
time?
Hot water is nice.
Hot water. You're born in the 80s.
1980, yes.
What do you think about when you think about the 70s?
All 70s look at this dress is like 70s, right? It's
That's
beautiful.
70s, yeah.
Yeah. Living in the 70s, songs in the 70s, I like it too.
Would you like to have the opportunity to take a look to
At the 70s,
If someone
yes,
had a machine and you flash back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love to go back to time and see how it looks like, what people do, what music they play.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
May I ask you, where you from?
I'm from Philippines
Yes.
and we live in Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah. You look like John Lennon.
I heard the news today, boy, about a lucky man who might cigarette.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Maybe I'm the son of John Lennon.
Maybe.
In Deutschland hat sich so irgendeine Musikjournalist am Osten hat sich über mir geschrieben, weil ich habe so lange in Deutschland gelebt, auch noch im Osten, und der hat darüber geschrieben, dass ich ein Kind aus einer Entspürung von John Lennon war. Also ich muss dann irgendwie noch ein Kind sein von John Lennon. Jaren 70. Waar denk je dan aan?
Nou ja, dan denk ik in deze week aan de Songfestival-overwinning van ABBA.
Ja, tuurlijk ja.
Van Waterloo.
Waterloo.
Dus, maar dat komt ook omdat we in de Songfestivalweek zitten natuurlijk.
Ja.
Dus dat is het eerste wat bij mij boven komt.
Oké. Ja, veel mensen weten dat niet, maar ABBA, kennen jullie ABBA?
Ja.
Ja, ABBA is ooit begonnen op het Songfestival. En daarom zijn ze er doorgebroken. Dan moet ik hem lager houden, hij is streng. Weten jullie iets van de jaren 70?
Nou ja, mijn moeder is geboren rond de jaren 70, dus dat weet ik ervan. En ook het Songfestival natuurlijk, want ja, ik hou gewoon heel erg van het Songfestival, dus dat weet ik gewoon vooral daarover.
Weet jij iets van de 70's?
Nou, ik weet volgens mij wel dat dan toen het eerste Songfestival was.
Ja.
I think about excellent rock and roll, really cool clothing, and a laid-back attitude.
That's right. Yeah, that's what it was.
But not the disco.
But not that.
That wasn't my forte.
No. Yeah, but in the 70s you were disco, you were rock and roll, you were whatever. But
Mods and rockers kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you know, girls? Is there any one of you know something about the 70s?
There was a lot of hippies.
You think so? And you know where the hippies were?
Mm-hmm. Fun-loving people.
Vietnam War. The Vietnam War. Yeah. The hippies were on this spot here because this dam, this is the most important central part of the Netherlands, and all the hippies were here gathered around the dam. You find a lot of pictures about hippies, and they were all dressed up like me, more or less. If I had a time machine and I could flash you back to the 70s, who would go to the 70s to take a look? Every one of you. That's good. Would you come back to this time?
Or would you stay in the 70s?
That's a hard question, right?
It's a very hard question.
I know.
Oh.
Probably not.
Probably not, because you know what? Even though they were preaching peace and love, I don't think it was totally instituted yet.
Yeah.
So nowadays I think we're just more accepting of other people, so it would be better to be now.
Yeah.
To był okres najwspanialszej działalności, że tak powiem, i muzycznej, i zawodowej. Umiejętność gry na kilku instrumentach nigdy nie była mi przeszkodą, zawsze była pomocna w pracy. I ten wiek, wtedy miałem 20 lat, w latach 70. Zaczynałem to wszystko, więc mam tylko i wyłącznie wspaniałe wspomnienia.
Wróciłabym do tamtych czasów. Wiecie po co? Żeby potańczyć. Wszędzie, gdzie tylko było możliwe, tańczyliśmy. Byliśmy naprawdę parą numer 1. No dzisiaj już troszkę kolanko boli, gdzieś tam troszkę pójdziemy, ale mało. Ale w tamtych czasach nawet na dachu naszego domu tańczyliśmy jak znajomi. Bardzo dużo się ludzie kiedyś spotykali. A wtedy się piło za dużo. No takie czasy były.
Róbcie to, na co macie ochotę. Nie róbcie nikomu krzywdy. Uśmiechajcie się do innych. Traktujcie innych po prostu jak swoich przyjaciół.
If I ask you something about the 70s, what would you say?
I would say the music. The music from the start of the 70s, where you've got things like Sweet and Chawadi Wadi and Mud running through to punk, and then the emergence of sort of disco as you drift into the early part of the 80s. So it's all about the music for me.
Was it all drag on to the 70s?
Yeah, for me it's more about the punk, the Sex Pistols, Clash, Stranglers. Yeah.
You were punk?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
that
was a time. Yeah.
Era time. You were disco, you were rock.
Early doors, yeah, with the flares and the platforms, and then you go into punk, and then you go to work and life gets a bit boring.
How was life in general? If you look at the society now and back then, people...
I mean, we didn't have as much money, there wasn't as much disposable income, and we didn't have the technology. If you're going to meet your friends, you arranged to meet your friends and you turned up.
Pick up the phone.
Well, there was no phone, because the phone box in the village, that was it. And you had to put your coin in, but otherwise, when you last saw them, you'd say, right, see you next time.
Same here. Was it different, the connection between people different, you think?
That's a good question. I think it's... Yes, because we didn't have screens between us.
Yeah.
So you were more engaged, you were more connected, but it was a smaller world. Now we're connected with the whole world.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's safer now because we know what's going on in an instant, whereas then we were much more insular. We knew the people we knew closer, but the wider world we knew less.
We could hide easier.
Yes.
Behind something.
Yes.
That's okay. If I give you the opportunity to go back to the 70s, would you take that opportunity?
That would be good, because I would be 50 years younger, so yes.
All right.
I can relive my life again, so yes. Yeah. But no, I wouldn't go back. I think today has far more to offer. The world is at our feet now. I travel, I experience, I see people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because your life now is richer than it was back then.
Yes, it was. I have fond memories, but of course nostalgia is a dangerous thing.
Last question. If you have to say something about the new younger generation, about 12, 13, 15, what would that be?
I would say they are amazing. When I was that age, I would hardly speak to an adult. I wouldn't know how to have a conversation. Now, they're so better informed. They know so more. They're so much more confident. My nephews and nieces are all that sort of age. They're happy to talk about anything. And they don't mind talking to me as an adult. Whereas when I was that age, adults were just a weird thing.
Die 70er Jahre.
Ja.
1974 in München.
Ja, genau.
Deutschland, Holland.
Ja. Oh.
2-1. Wir waren bei den Holländern mit im Block. Und da ging immer Holland, Holland.
Ach so, ja.
War interessant.
Also, sie waren unsere Fangruppe eigentlich.
Ja, bei der Fangruppe. Die Holländer waren super. Ein fairer Verlierer.
Ja.
Und die Zuschauer hervorragend. Ne? In dem Fanblock, also muss ich sagen,
wunderschön,
hat mir gut gefallen. Ja.
Und waren Sie in den 70er Jahren eine Hippie oder waren Sie eine regular Durchschnitt?
Nein, ich war ein regular Durchschnitt. Ich war mit dem Fußball auch beschäftigt. Ich war auch einige Jahre für die FIFA tätig. Naja, heute bin ich natürlich in Pension, okay. So. Und wieder,
sieht man gar nicht.
Wieder in dem schönen Holland mal. Also nee, sorry, in den Niederlanden.
Ach so, wir sagen selbst auch Holland. Aber es sind nur immer die Deutschen, die das sagen, aber es ist die Niederlande. Aber wir sagen selber auch.
Ja, normal sagt er ja Holland. Ne? Okay, ich wünsche noch alles Gute, einen schönen Tag und bleibt gesund. Ne?
Das wünschen wir uns alle. Dankeschön.
Ja, als erstes denkt man an die Musik der 70er Jahre.
Besser ist es heute nicht, aber es ist anders. Ich würde nicht sagen, dass es nun bei uns besser war.
Besser ist es nicht, es ist einfach anders.
Ja.
Die Zeiten sind anders.
Also
jede Zeit ist eine eigene
Zeit. Es war auch bei uns nicht besser, das kann man eigentlich nicht sagen. Es war eben an.
Sie werden nicht unbedingt zurückgehen in die Zeit, wenn jemand ihr die Chance gab, um das zu tun.
Nein.
Dann bleiben Sie schön hier.
Da bleiben wir schon hier.
Ja, gut. May I ask you where you're from?
Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles, California. What do you know about the 70s?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it was after all the 60s stuff, so it came a little later. We missed all that.
Between generation. I mean, it's when we started college.
Yeah, started
the 70s.
And, so it was fairly quiet.
Yeah.
Quiet.
I don't think it wasn't the late 60s. It was a very different time.
Yeah. Things that.
So it wasn't.
The Vietnam War was over or winding down, and there wasn't a whole lot of political stuff going on.
If I had a time machine over there, and I could switch you back for 10 minutes in some kind of a time, what time would that be? 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever?
Oh, I think the 60s. I think a lot of exciting things were happening in the 60s.
The 60s.
You were too young for that, but
but there was
early 70s.
There was a lot of architectural changes in the 60s, mid-century modern, furniture changed. People went from post-war housing to flat ranch-style housing,
In the United
everything
States.
kind of changed.
Yeah.
So I think for us, I would say the 60s, but we were a little young for that.
Of course, everything was newer in the United States, so we didn't have all this older buildings and architectures very much at all.
You most likely did not live in the 70s, right?
Not at all. We
Not
were
at-
born in in 2001 and 2004.
Okay, well you came from France.
Greece and France, but we both
Greece.
live in France.
Okay. Have you any idea about the 70s? When I say the 70s, what is the first thing you come in your mind?
Rock music maybe, and the pop art culture. When I was younger and I was partying with my parents and everything, I really liked the music and the culture, I would say.
What was your style? Rock, disco, pop?
Rock, disco. I think that today's music is not concentrated in the message that they want to transmit, and they just focus on the music itself.
Yeah.
But I think that the way that you can dance and in the same time tell a story about the atomic bomb in Japan.
It had a purpose, you mean?
Yeah, I mean the difference of the purpose.
There
Yeah.
were more protest songs or more messages to the world.
Messages to the world. I mean, right now, Madonna or I don't know what.
Yeah.
You can dance, but it's not that you're gonna find the biggest story behind the lyrics.
If you think about living now and imagine yourself living in the 70s, what would be different?
I think, first of all, mass media communication. The idea that you, like, for example, my parents, when they left Greece to study, they didn't speak with their parents every day.
Yeah.
They didn't have social media. They didn't have telephones. And I think it's also the idea that it's just after the war, I mean 15 years, and the period of war, the Second World War, and I think that people were more really trying to live free, and peace was more important than now, because in Europe we think that war is not that close to us, even though we got Ukraine and Russia, that it's really close to us. I don't think that we have achieved in really contributing together all to protest and find the importance of peace.
You have a good view about 70s. I was there, I lived there, I can tell.
And what would you say about the 70s and now? What is the thing that you're missing the most?
Well, you're the first one who is really asking me something that's great. Well, the 70s were, in my opinion, more open, and the people were more experimenting with things, you know? That's why the music, all these different kind of styles. Now everyone has more or less the same kind of music and the same rhythm and the same beat and the same influences. But in the 70s, the world was open. After the 60s, the people were, okay, you tried, okay, do it.
All right.
And in my opinion, the people were more open to each other. More like, hey, you know, you love men or you love women.
No problem.
Whatever, you know, it's cool, because everything was new back then and everyone was accepting it.
Yes.
Maybe not the older generation from the 40s and the 50s who were saying, you young people, but that's why you have it. And that's the big difference with now. And the people were more open communicating, because there were no phones, no handies, no WhatsApp, no nothing at all. You have to go to your friend to ask him something or pick up the telephone and call him. And that's different than now.
And when did you think that this changed?
Well, you notice mass communication, and then you speak about the 80s, and the 80s came the computers industry and the computers and the telephones and then the mobile phones, and that makes a big difference. And then more or less in the 80s, everything started to be automatically more television. I think the difference between the 70s was there were new influences from everywhere, new influences from programs from America and so. And in the 80s, people started actually imitating people on the screen.
All right.
And the big industry said, hey, I'm selling clothes, you know, I take that dude, that clothes, there will be that guy. And everyone was looking at one individual on television to identify himself with.
Yeah.
And in the 70s, everyone had the guts to be different, you know. You were hippies. You
Wear
do something
whatever you
different.
want,
You cut holes in your trousers and you were different, or you were punk or whatever. And in the 80s, everything was, okay, you're rock. Oh no, you're disco. Oh.
Okay, yeah.
And that's the difference. There was, in my opinion, the switch.
The mindset, okay.
The mindset was different there. Thank you for the questions.